We are earning money, but we are very poor in saving money. So to help us become smart investor and sound financial planner, we have with us today Dr. Nitin Bhagli, sir. On behalf of Lifestyle and Work Group, I welcome you, sir. Sir is practicing orthopedician and past president of Orthopedic Society of Pune. He is founder member of WealthCon Group, which is famous for spreading financial education amongst doctors. So let's hear from Bhagli, sir, the expressway to financial heaven. You can post your questions in chat box. We will be discussing questions after sir's talk. Over to you, sir. Sir, your voice is mute. You need to unmute yourself. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, you are audible now.
Okay. So good evening, friends. Expressway is a multi-lane fast highway without crossroads. It connects the starting point with the destination. Here our starting point is the day we start earning money, the day we start practice. But our final destination is financial freedom. And what is financial freedom? We should not need to work anymore to earn for our living. Now, on this expressway, there are going to be various toll posts which are going to collect toll from us. And these intermediate toll posts are buying house, children's education, wedding. Exits are temporary setbacks which may suffer for personal illnesses or professional setbacks like medical legal case, etc. Now, wealth has three components. One is earning, two is preservation, and three is multiplication. I need not talk about earning. You're all professionals. You know how best you can make money. I am going to tell you the way to preserve money. Preservation of money has again two components. To avoid unwarranted expenses. Unwarranted expenses mean buying assets which depreciate like a Mercedes car or a BMW, fancy cars just for show off, and to save on outgo of taxes. That is most important. And multiplication is by proper shrewd investment. Again, in investment, you should get good returns, and these returns also should be very tax savvy. So, earning, preservation, and multiplication. I'm going to talk about preservation and multiplication more than anything else. Now, this seminar is for educational purpose. I want you to understand it should not be considered as financial planning or investment advice. I am not responsible for the outcome of any investment decision taken by the participants. Please consult your professional financial advisor before taking any investment decision. Some of the concepts may not be agreeable to some participants, or they may be having opposing views. If you do not agree with something, you don't need to take it home. And I request you to please bear with me. I will be sharing some investment concepts with you, and it may not be construed as a dictum or the only right way. There are more than one ways to financial heaven. If there are some errors, then they are inadvertent, and please overlook them. So also I know my limitations as an orator. Please ignore some oratorial mistakes if I may make. Doctors are good at wealth creation, but they are not good at multiplication. They have a very limited knowledge of finance, investment, borrowing, or expansion of own profession. Most are self-employed, and they need to provide for repayment of loans, taxes, hospital and family running expenses, contingencies, children's education, or settlement during active earning years, and retirement. Now let us start from the basic concepts of investment. First and foremost, let us study what is power of compounding. Now, if I invest rupees 1,000 with a rate of interest of 12% and invest it for a span of 10 years, my 1,000 rupees will grow to 3,262. At the end of 20 years, if I don't withdraw any interest and keep on reinvesting the interest again, that is known as compounding, I will get not 6,500 but 10,641 rupees in 20 years. And after 30 years, it will not be 20,000, but it will be 34,711. So Rupees 1000 will multiply 35 times nearly in a span of 30 years when the rate of interest is 12%. So that is known as compounding. Don't withdraw your interest, keep on reinvesting the interest, and your fruits will be very sweet. Now, longer the duration, bigger the effect of compounding. If you start investing 1000 rupees a month, say at the age of 25, and if your rate of return is around 15%, then the corpus created at your age of 60 will be 1.23 crores. But if you start same at your age of 30, 1000 rupees a month with same return, it will grow only to 60 lakhs. And if you start still 5 years later, same amount, same rate of return, it will grow only to 29 lakhs. So the carry home message here is start early. However small amount you may start, but start early, start saving your money early. It will grow to a bigger corpus at your retirement. Now, should I invest monthly or should I invest lump sum in a year? That's a common question. Look at a Dr. A who invests 5,000 rupees a month, like a SIP, systematic investment plan. While Dr. B, he invests 60,000 rupees lump sum in a year. The amount saved per year is same. One is investing 5,000 rupees a year monthly, other is investing lump sum 60,000 rupees. Duration of investment 30 years. Rate of return 12%. Number of contributions made by Dr. A are 360 because he is doing it monthly for 30 years, while contributions made by Dr. B are only 30 because he is making it only once a year. So look at the final corpus. Dr. A will have a final corpus of 1 crore and 74 lakhs as against Dr. B, who will have a corpus of 1 crore and 44 lakhs. 21% extra Dr. A will make just because of discipline. Monthly regular investment will pay you more than otherwise. Now look at the goals of investment. This is the most important slide. This is the carry home message for you. You can take a picture at the end of all these four or this thing. First goal of investment should be you should be able to beat inflation. I will come to inflation in the next slide. Your wealth must quadruple 4 times in a decade or double in 5 years' time. That is good investment. Number 2, difference in pre-tax returns and post-tax returns should be minimum. Say if you keep a fixed deposit in a bank, you start earning interest, but that interest is going to be taxed in your hand. Similarly, if you buy shares, you get dividend. That dividend is going to be taxed in your hands. So whatever return you may get from investment, tax is going to minimize the return. So you should invest in such a way that there is minimum tax cutting. So difference in pre-tax return and post-tax return should be minimum. Third, you should have a mechanism to protect the wealth from sudden liability or volatility in the markets. We are all doctors. Sometimes in life, we are going to face medical legal suits and they may drain your pockets very badly. So you must have certain corpus which cannot be touched even by court of law. Transmission of wealth to the future generations should be hassle-free. We are all working for money and we want our children to do well in their life. And as parents, as responsible parents, it's our duty to give them a platform from where they can grow further. So whatever you have earned by hard work should be transmitted to your next generations smoothly, which should be hassle-free. Now let us understand what's inflation. It is the rate at which the currency loses its value. Value is nothing but the purchasing power of currency. One has to pay more for the same amount of goods or services over a period of time. I have undergone tonsillectomy as a child in 1968, where the consultation fee of my treating surgeon then, topmost surgeon of Pune, was only rupees 15. And look at today in 2021, how much is the consultation fee of doctors? My whole tonsillectomy bill was rupees 100, including hospitalization and anesthesia. Today, you know how much a tonsillectomy can cost. Look at the prices of petrol. When I was in medical college, petrol used to cost 2 rupees a liter. So today is 100 rupees a liter. So that's inflation. Now, government, whenever announces its figures of inflation, they give more than 50% or nearly 50% weightage to food items, food and beverages. But do we really spend 50% of our earnings only on food and beverages? No. For us, we belong to an elite class of the society. We want to educate our children in the best possible way. We want to put them in best educational institutions. We ourselves and our dependents, they will take treatment in best of hospitals. We want to spend our holidays abroad. We want to be members of elite clubs. So all this, apart from food and beverages, is what is called as lifestyle inflation. And that lifestyle inflation is increasing at nearly 15 to 16% a year, as against food inflation, which is around 5 to 6% a year. So if you take the average, we have to consider that we have to face an inflation of around 12% per year today. Now look at what is the real return from your investment. If you invest 100 rupees at a rate of interest of 8% per year, after 1 year, your 100 rupees will grow to 108 rupees, which includes 8 rupees interest, which you have earned. Are you with me? Hello? Hello? Is everybody following?
Sir, you are audible, sir.
Yeah, you are following, no?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Now look at the tax slab of 30%. So 8 rupees which you have earned as an interest, 30% of which is going to go to income tax. We have not considered surcharge or cess here. A slab of 30% means you are losing 2 rupees and 40 paisa from the 8 rupees which is coming to you as an interest. So final carry home is only rupees 5 and 60 paisa. Now consider the inflation. Government figure of inflation is around only 5%. We are not considering lifestyle inflation here. Just reduce the government figure of inflation from what is left, 5 rupees 60 paisa minus 5, it's only 60 paisa. So your post-tax, post-inflation return is meager 60 paisa. And if you consider lifestyle inflation here, like education, healthcare, leisure holidays, and all those things, you are earning negatively. So 8% is not going to keep pace with the inflation. Understood? Now, what are the asset products which look towards for investment? There are asset creation products and there are asset protection products. Both are equally important. You are working hard to create assets, then you should take care to protect your assets as well. Now, what are the asset creation products? There are financial assets, there are physical assets, and there are alternative assets. In the financial assets, most popular being deposits in the bank, either in the savings bank or in the fixed deposits. Some smart investors may put money in direct equity, that is shares. Then people are fond of putting money in bonds, Reserve Bank of India bonds. We have our money in provident fund, mutual funds, post office savings, corporate deposits, debentures. Now, physical assets. Indians are very fond of investing in physical assets, especially gold, jewelry, and ornaments, and real estate. Then, of course, bullion like diamond, silver, platinum, etc. And there are alternative assets like private equity funds, high yield, non-convertible debentures of companies. Then there are hedge funds. There are sovereign gold bonds, which are now very popular. There are gold exchange traded funds. There are infrastructure funds, and so on. So mainly a common investor will put money either in bank or in mutual funds or in shares or some investment in gold. These are the common four asset classes a common investor follows. Now, what are asset protection products? These are extremely important. First and foremost is insurance. First is insure your own life. If your spouse is also earning, insure her life as well. You should not do life insurance of non-earning members of the family. It's absolutely foolish. Insurance is not an investment tool. It's just for risk cover. Never invest in money back policies and endowment policies. Buy only term insurance where the premium is low. Start very early at the age of 25 or 30. And if you have a partner who is also earning, insure her life or his life as well. and do only term insurance. Say if you don't have a capacity to put so much of money as a premium in the early stage, doesn't matter. You insure for 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs, 50 lakhs at the age of 25. Take additional policy at the age of 30 when you are better off. Take another policy at 35. That's how you can start 2, 3, 4 policies also, but insure yourself for a crore or two very early so that you save on premium. Then, of course, Mediclaim. You know what are the costs of healthcare today and how they are multiplying. You must insure your life and your dependent's life. Do a Mediclaim. Apart from tax benefits under Section 80D, it is to protect from unimaginable or unplanned expenses. If you are having your own clinic, hospital, then you have to do home or hospital protection insurance, fire and theft insurance. First and foremost, as a professional, you must insure yourself adequately under professional indemnity insurances, because today doctor is a seller of the service, patient is a buyer of the service, and he can sue you anytime. So even for 2 to 3 years after retirement, you should continue to have a professional indemnity insurance. The amount you insure yourself for depends on your branch. If you are a surgeon or an anesthetist, you have to, take a heavy insurance. And then if you're a cosmetic surgeon or orthopedic surgeon and you are doing high-end surgeries like joint replacement, obesity surgery, then of course you have to give all these considerations in insuring yourself in under professional indemnity plan. Then jewelry and valuable insurance, of course. Future and option hedging for equities. I will not deal with this because most of you are novices and you do not really know what is stock market, how it operates, and how to insure from volatility in the markets. If you have a huge portfolio, future and option hedging offers you one opportunity to hedge your portfolio. Cash in the bank is one of the most important asset protection product. You will be laughing at this statement, but yes, it comes handy in contingencies. Now look at the returns of various asset classes in last 30 years. This is from 1986 to 2017. BSE Sensex has given the highest returns. You can see it here. The second best is this blue line, light blue. It is Public Provident Fund. Third is this yellow line, gold, and last fourth is fixed deposit. We have not taken real estate into consideration in this because the appreciation of real estate depends on whether it's a residential or commercial, which city you are buying a real estate. The cost of real estate depends on the location, city you buy, what the type of product you are buying. So we have not considered that. But apart from that, BSE Sensex, that is the Bombay Stock Exchange Index, it has given the maximum return in last 30 years. Now see in real terms, if you have invested 1 lakh in 1980, what has happened at the end of 2017? After 20 years, 1 lakh has grown to 20 lakhs in fixed deposits. It has multiplied your money 20 times. So your annualized return becomes 8.39%. But in those 30 years, inflation was 7.67%. So what you have really carried post-inflation is only 0.72%. We have not considered tax here. So just post-inflation return from fixed deposits in 30 years is 0.72%. In gold, the amount has risen to 37 lakhs. That is 37 times, giving you an annualized return of 10.21%. Inflation is 7.61% again. So post-inflation return is 2.54%. Silver gave you 1.35%. And Sensex has given you 10.33%. So it is the smartest way, best way. Post-inflation return is Sensex, that is direct equity investment, direct shares. Now, those who are fond of keeping cash without paying taxes, unaccounted cash, that is the worst form of investment. It grows negatively because cash is of no use. Uspe upar DDT marna hai kya aapko? So only it has degrown to rupees 5,208. So it's a negative return of 95% post-inflation. So the carry home message, best return will be given by Sensex. Second best will be gold. How will I am going to deal with it elaborately later on. Cash makes no sense whatsoever. Now you all know what are the tax rates today. Finance Minister has offered two tax slabs, two options now, a new tax regime and old tax regime. According to old tax regime, 30% rate of interest starts at 10 lakh rupees annual taxable income. And I will always advise all my friends who are doctors to stick to old plan, because that's the option which gives an opportunity to avail of various tax concessions. Now, this is the most important slide. We all know once you reach a taxable limit and your income goes on growing, on a tax, we have to pay surcharge according to your net taxable carry home income plus cess. So first is surcharge and then is cess, education and health cess. So if your taxable income is between 10 lakhs to 50 lakhs and your tax range is naturally 30%, there is no surcharge between 0 to 50 lakhs and your cess will be applicable of 4%. So your net tax rate between 0 lakhs to 50 lakhs taxable income is 31.2%. If it's between 50 lakhs and 1 crore, you have a surcharge of 10%. So your total net tax rate will become 34.32%. Between 1 and 2 crores, it will be 15% surcharge plus cess. So your net tax rate will be nearly 36%. If your net income, taxable income is more than 2 crores, it will be 39%. And if it's more than 5 crores, it will be 42.74%. So the message here, why I have put this slide? Because how much money is going to go out of your pocket towards taxes when your income goes on increasing? The message I want to give you here is you have to plan your taxes so smartly. You have to redistribute the income amongst your family members in such a way that your tax outgo is minimized. Understood? So I am going to suggest you ways how to redistribute your income. Now we all know you have to select appropriate tax model. Now better tax planning, utilization of maximum income slabs of your family members. If your total professional receipts in a year are 50 lakhs or less, and if you pay tax on 50% of your receipts as a profit, then no questions will be asked to you. There is no need to keep books of accounts, no hassles. You can avail of this benefit, which is known as presumptive taxation under section 44 ADA. So if your professional receipts are less than 50 lakh rupees in a year, and if you pay tax on 50% assumed or presumed profit, no questions will be asked to you. So your tax receipts are 48 lakhs. You assume your profit to be 24 lakhs, pay income tax on 24 lakhs and forget about all the worries. So that is section 44 ADA, presumptive taxation. Whether you are utilizing the benefit of Hindu undivided family, have you created this entity and started generation of income here? I am going to come to it in details a little later. Now, doctor who is working in a hospital, if I have a hospital, yes, I have a hospital, orthopedic hospitals. But ideally, the owner of the premises of the hospital, doctor who is working in the hospital should not be the owner of the premises of the hospital. So, if your wife is not a doctor, she can buy the premises. You work there in the hospital. You should not own the premises, number one. Number two, the part of the entity which runs the hospital, you should not be a part of it. See, if you have a brother, if you have a sister-in-law, if you have a father who is retired and he has resources, your mother, they can form a partnership company or they can own a hospital where you will keep your patients and the income will be redistributed. The part of the entity which runs the diagnostic services, you have a physiotherapy clinic, you have an X-ray clinic, you have a lab inside the hospital. All these things can be owned by non-medicos. You know how many diagnostic centers are run. Dr. Lal's Path Lab, Metropolis, PH Medical, they are not owned by the doctors. They are all owned by non-medicos, and it's perfectly okay legally. Pharmacy, you can employ a pharmacist, but pharmacy can be owned by your brother, your wife, if she's not a doctor, and any family member. So you have to consider redistribution of income under various heads. You have to select an appropriate model, knowing the qualifications of your family members and your intra-family relations. That is very important. Now, general guidelines for hospital owners who are running private enterprises, setups which are having turnover of more than a crore can have a model of partnership plus proprietorship. So, I have two daughters. One of them is a doctor, the other is not a doctor. My wife is a doctor. Her quantum of practice is lesser than mine. She, along with my other non-medical doctor, can form a partnership firm. They can run the hospital where I will keep my patient. If the turnover and my consulting services will continue under the proprietorship module where I can avail of 44 ADA benefit. That's the real charm. Since 44 ADA has been introduced for the doctors and the limit set is decent, 50 lakhs professional receipts, we can make these combinations, proprietary concern and a partnership under the same roof. If your turnover is between 2.5 to 4 crores, you can have two proprietorship. If your wife is also a doctor, she can have her own consultation as a proprietorship module, your consultation as a proprietorship module, and a partnership module to run a hospital. Similarly, setup involving more doctors as consultants. Then you can have a proprietorship plus private limited company plus proprietorship model. So all these permutation and combinations are possible to save taxes. I am giving you just one fantastic example. Now see here. This is a model when I am running a hospital solely as a proprietor. My annual receipts from IPD and OPD are shown here. Now my IPD income is say 1 crore 50 lakhs. My OPD is 15 lakhs. My physiotherapy clinic generates income of 20 lakhs. I have a medical store which generates a revenue of 45 lakhs. So thus the total turnover becomes 2 crore and 30 lakhs. Out of which running the hospital costs me 90 lakhs a year. My physio clinic expenses where I'm employed a physiotherapist and buy new equipment and all those things, it costs me 10 lakh rupees a year. My medical store expenses are around say 31 lakhs and 50,000. So my total expenses are around say 1 crore 31 lakhs 50,000. So my net taxable income under the proprietorship module then is 98 lakhs 50,000 rupees, where my tax outgo becomes 28 lakhs nearly. Followed? Now see what I have done here. I have shifted my consulting practice under the proprietorship module while the hospital is transferred to a partnership firm. So my IPD income now goes to the partnership module, while my OPD income from my own consultations and physiotherapy come under proprietorship module. The revenue comes to only 35 lakhs. I don't have to quote any expenses there because the presumptive tax regime allows me to assume a profit of 17 lakh 50,000 on which I pay a tax of 3 lakh 40,000 under 44A. Now my partnership firm generates a revenue of 1 crore 50 lakhs. Medical store is 45 lakhs. So here my total revenue generated is 1 crore and 95 lakhs. Hospital expenses remain the same. Medical store expenses remain the same. While my non-medico working partner draws a salary of 5 lakhs, which is also not taxable. So my total expenses per year become 1 crore 26 lakhs 50,000, and my taxable income of the firm is 68 lakhs 50,000. Tax outgo is 18 lakh 70,000. So my total tax saved is 5 lakhs and 70,000 rupees. That's nearly 50,000 rupees a month. So that's one of the ways to minimize your tax outgo by redistributing your income by combining proprietorship with partnership modules. Now let us come to a concept of Hindu undivided family. That is the most legitimate way of creating one additional tax entity for any Hindu, Sikh, Jain, or Buddha family. In India, many families are undivided, and incomes earned by such families can be joint incomes. They can be having ancestral properties like buildings, offices, some family business, farms, and these incomes cannot be taxed in the hands of any specific individual, but in the hands of family. You create a separate PAN card for that entity, and it's one of the most legitimate way of additional tax entity. Additional tax means additional income tax rates, thus tax saving. How do you create a HUF? You have to apply for a PAN card, open a bank account, create a deed of the HUF. How do you create a deed? On a 500 rupees stamp paper, you have to name a Karta, names of other co-partners of that HUF, and the declaration by the co-partners to agree to nominate a Karta, and Karta has the authority of the accounts vested in his hand. And the members are the only members of the HUF. And the Karta holds the right to govern all transactions. Now you have to state the capital, how you have created the capital of the HUF. First, apply for a HUF PAN card. Then open an account in the name of a HUF in any nationalized bank. The bank or the income tax department may ask you for a creation of the HUF deed, which you are going to make on a stamp paper and open a bank account. Now, where will the money come from the HUF? How are you going to infuse a capital in the HUF? If your family has an ancestral business or agricultural income or a property from where you are generating rental income or a business, then the profits from that such common family activity will be the hodgepodge of your HUF. If it's not possible, if there is no such thing, then you have to infuse capital by taking gifts either from your parents, your wife's parents, or close relatives, blood relatives. Any gift above 50,000 from a non-relative is taxable. From a blood relative, from your parents, from your wife's parents, you can get gifts limitlessly, and they should all be taken by check, and they have to account it in their income tax returns. That's how you can create capital in the HUF. Now, this capital which is infused into your HUF can be used for any business. It can be used in shares or mutual funds, in real estate, but I never advise to put that money in real estate, because ultimately the other family members are a part of HUF, and if there are conflicts amongst the family members, the title can become problem. To liquidate that property can become a problem. So it's best to invest that money in shares, mutual funds, or do some business. In my hospital, my extra turnover, my extra clinic belongs to my HUF. I have two daughters. I have no son. I am the Karta of my HUF. My wife and my two other daughters are co-partners. Now look at this example. This is Dr. Lalit, whose gross income is 26 lakhs a year, and he is paying a tax of 5,70,000. Let us see how. He is investing his 1,50,000 under ATC, say in PPA for National Savings Certificate, or whatever investment which is permissible under ATC. He is utilizing that full. Similarly, he is buying a mediclaim for rupees 20,000 under ATD, which is totally tax free. So his net taxable income now remains 24 lakhs and 30,000, on which the tax outgo is 5,54,000 plus educational surcharge and higher education cess. So no net tax he has to pay is 5,70,000. But now if you consider his gross income, which was 26 lakhs a year, actually he used to get 6 lakh rupees as income from his business of the family. Now, once he realized that he is making a mistake, he forms a HUF, and those 6 lakhs which he is getting from the family business now are shifted to HUF account. His income has reduced to 20 lakhs. Section on ATC he is utilizing as before. HUF, though cannot have a PPF account, HUF can ensure the life of Karta or co-partners and avail of ATC benefit 1,50,000. Net taxable income is divided into 18,30,000 under proprietorship for him and 4,50,000 for the HUF, and the net tax outgo for both the accounts you can see is reduced to 4,05,000. That's a saving of 1,65,000 rupees a year. So that is more than 13,000 rupees a month. So that's how creating one additional legitimate entity will help you save your taxes. So those who have not yet started, everyone who is married, though he does not have a children, he can still have a HUF immediately. Your parents can have their independent HUF, you can have your own HUF. Your married daughters continue to be the co-partners in your HUF. Now, how do you save money? We are all very fond of buying cars for show off and for personal use as well. Now, this example I have given for high-end earners from Mumbai. This talk was given in Mumbai in front of most elite orthopedic surgeons. People are very fond of BMWs, Audis, and Mercedes. So this was an example, but this is applicable to even a Maruti. Now, buying a car, if you want to buy a high-end car, say Mercedes E-Class, which costs 70 lakh on road, you have to pay 10 lakhs as a margin money, and then you can borrow 60 lakhs from any financial institution as loan. So your EMI on 60 lakhs for 5 years becomes 1 lakh and 27,000 rupees per month. Why do we buy high-end cars? Because it gives us depreciation, 15% depreciation per year. So you save on taxes by claiming 15% depreciation every year. So over 5 years, on a car of 70 lakhs, you get a depreciation of say about 39 lakhs, and you save taxes of around 13 lakhs and 62,000. 13 lakh 63,000, right? But what you have lost, you have put 10 lakhs as a margin money. You are losing interest on those 10 lakhs over 5 years. At 8%, it is going to, you are losing interest of 4 lakhs. In 5 years, you are going to do a zero debt insurance, plus you are going to service the car at least once a year. High-end car servicing is also very expensive. So over 5 years, towards insurance and servicing, you are going to spend at least 6,25,000 rupees. And every 30 to 35,000 kilometers, you are going to change either the battery or the tires or both. So that's going to cost you another 3 lakhs. So within 5 years, you have saved a tax of 13 lakhs, but you have already lost 13 lakhs in interest, zero debt, servicing, and replacement. As against, now don't think of buying a car today. People have now not buying a house. They're staying in a rented house. Similarly, you can think of taking a car on lease rental. It is official now. All these years, companies were not giving cars on rent or lease to individuals, but because of lockdown and downfall in business, almost all the companies, Mercedes, Audi, BMW, Skoda, Maruti, they have started leasing cars to individuals. Now, the same car which I am talking of buying, you go to a Mercedes dealer and take the car on lease, maximum they give for 4 years, and they have a set limit per year, either 10,000 kilometers per year or 20,000 kilometers per year. Any extra mileage, if you may drive, that will cost you more. And on individual basis, you have to strike a deal. Insurance is there, maintenance is there, and all those things. This is 1,25,000 rupees a month towards lease rental. Insurance will be done by the dealer. Annual servicing will be done by the dealer, and the insurance will be theirs. So in 5 years, what you are going to spend as lease rental is 75 lakhs. Now all this 75 lakhs is going to be an expense for a doctor, because conveyance and transportation is a totally permissible expense. So what you have saved towards tax is 26 lakh 25,000 as against 13.5 lakhs a year, plus all this. So here you are not benefited even 1 rupee considering all these expenses. But on the right side, there is only gain and gain. You have gained 26 lakh 25,000 towards tax saving. Now look at the ad. Maruti Ignis it is giving you a lease rental of 19,174 per month for 4 years. It's Ignis Delta AMT. Look here, Wagonar, it is giving you, it is on release 17,181. So this scheme of Maruti is known as Maruti Suzuki Subscribe, where you can get a car on lease from the company or the dealer. So that's one way of saving taxes. Next. Now, I have already said those who are attached to big corporate hospitals and whose earning is hefty and in the form of check, and since they are attached to big hospitals, there is no way adjustment or redistribution of income possible. What they can do, if their wife is a non-earner, if she is not a medico, he can give loan to his wife, and then the wife can buy an expensive car and lease out that car to the husband. Now look at the lease rentals for an expensive car. These rates are from Pune. This I have collected from the net itself. And just last week, if you take a car on lease, say it's a Mercedes E250, 60 rupees per kilometer is the charge for Mercedes E50. And any cab owner wants at least 250 to 300 kilometers per day run of that car. So 60 into 250 is 15,000 rupees a day. Those who are earning very hefty sums from corporate hospitals towards professional charges can use this idea and pay that hefty rental fee to their wife or their HUF, which will buy the car, and you will take it on lease from them. What you have to ensure, take a shop act in the name of the owner, either a HUF or a wife, start a company, Sita Travels or Tours or whatever it is. And secondly, you should pay commercial road tax every year and not one-time tax, which we normally buy as when we normally pay as a buyer, as a proprietor. So these are the only two precautions you have to follow. Then you will save very heavily and the income will be redistributed amongst your taxable entities. Think, apply. And this is not only applicable to a car. Those who are leading orthopedic surgeons can buy a robo, laparoscopic equipment, arthroscopic equipment, and whatnot. So buying expensive equipment on lease should be a mantra. We as Doctors Association should now strive hard to convince the companies to give us instruments on lease and not on sale. Now we all know what is Section 80C, what are benefits up to 1,50,000 rupees per year. Equity linked savings scheme is fantastic because it is market linked and returns can be good. Only thing is lock-in period for minimum 3 years. So you can't sell the shares which you buy under ELSS for 3 years. Public Provident Fund, according to me, is best because it has a legal security. You are investing in a corpus which cannot be touched even by a court of law. It's going to be a retirement corpus for you. Public Provident Fund comes under what is known as EEE, exempt category. Whatever amount you invest every year is tax-free. The interest generated from the already accumulated investment is tax-free. And when you withdraw the sum at the end of maturity, at the end of 15 years or further 5 years extensions, then the withdrawal is also tax-free. Same is applicable to Sukanya Samruddhi Yojana. Now, let us consider taxations from various investment classes. Now, if you put your money in direct shares, and if those shares are listed on stock exchanges, and you have bought those shares from a registered broker after paying security transaction tax. Now, let us see what is the short-term tax and a long-term tax. Any investment in shares or equity mutual funds, if it's held for less than 12 months, and if you sell and realize the profit, it comes under short-term capital gains category. But if you held those shares or equity mutual funds for more than 12 months, it immediately becomes a long-term capital gain, and any profits generated by sale of these investments in equity mutual funds or shares after 1 year will be taxed only at 10%. So on one side, you have seen that your tax slab may be more than 30% when your income exceeds 10 lakhs. But you may save your taxes by investing in shares and realizing the profits after 1 year. Your tax outgo will be minimized. Equity oriented mutual funds I have talked about just now. Unlisted shares I'm not going to talk about because you are all novices in investment. You are not going to buy unlisted shares. Now gold in physical form. If you buy gold coins, chains, or jewelry by check, and if you sell them before 36 months, then it's direct addition to your income and you will be taxed on the gains generated from sale of gold at your usual tax slab rates. But if you hold them for more than 36 months, then you will be taxed at only 20% capital gains tax, long-term capital gain tax. And what is indexation? The value of money becomes less with time. We have seen what is inflation. So it is inflation adjusted value. If you have bought an item long time back, say in year 2000, your base rate, market rate is 1st of April 2001. So what was the rate on 1st of April 2001 is calculated as a base rate. And every year government announces the indexation factor. So your investment gradually goes on, the cost of acquisition gradually goes on increasing, and your profit generated by sale becomes proportionately less. So your tax outgo becomes less. So that is known as indexation. It is inflation adjusted acquisition price. Now, we have talked about physical gold. Now, if you buy gold in the form of sovereign gold bonds, which are issued by Reserve Bank of India every now and then, if you sell those sovereign gold bonds before 36 months, again, it is short-term capital gains for gold, which is at usual slab rate. For equity or equity mutual fund, it is only 15%, but for gold, it is at usual slab rates. But if you hold gold bonds for more than 36 months, again, you have a benefit. It's 20% with indexation. Now, sovereign gold bonds have a maturity of 8 years. So if you hold them till maturity and surrender those bonds at maturity, there is no capital gains tax. That's the biggest benefit of sovereign gold bonds, which is held till maturity. Now, if you hold gold in the form of exchange traded funds or units, and if you don't hold them for more than 36 months, again, the same principle as sovereign gold bonds held for a short duration. Now, debt instruments. What is a debt instrument? You keep your money either in the bank bonds or the corporate bonds or government securities. If they are listed officially with the financial, like SEBI, then if you hold them for not more than 12 months, they will be taxed as short-term capital gain at your usual slab rates. But if you hold them for more than 12 months, they will be taxed only 10%. So non-convertible debentures which are listed on the stock markets have an advantage of low tax rate. Now, mutual funds which invest your money in these government bonds or corporate bonds, you have to hold them for a minimum 36 months. Otherwise, you will shell out income tax at usual slab rates. But if you hold them for more than 3 years, then again you have an advantage of 20% with indexation. So your income tax outgo will fall. Now, what is the tax structure on the interest we earn from banks? If you keep your money in savings account, 10,000 rupees direct deduction under section 80TT is available to you from your taxable income towards interest from the savings account. If you keep all your money in fixed deposits, corporate bonds, or any other bonds, interest is fully taxable. There is no benefit for interest generated from any term deposit, time deposit, or corporate bonds. Now, taxation on rental income. If you have bought a real estate, commercial or residential, and if you are getting return, here is one area where there is good tax concession. Rental income comes under the head of income from house property and Section 24 is applicable for such incomes. May it be a residential property or a commercial property or an industrial property or open land alone. Basis of tax is annual value, which is determined either by rent actually received by you or the reasonable amount for which the property can be leased out, whichever is higher. And this is available from the ready reckoners of the government. You get a standard deduction of 30%, irrespective of whether the owner has actually incurred an expense on repairs or renovation. So whatever rent you are collecting, either from the commercial property or a residential property, 30% of the rental income is reduced as standard deduction. And this, if the owner has borrowed money for the purchase of construction or renovation of the property, interest payable is totally deductible. So borrowing could be either from person or individual or institution. So that's a big tax advantage for income from rental properties. Tax on dividend income. Now dividend is fully taxable in the hands of the recipient. Whatever dividend you may get from the shares, it is fully taxable. This is one area which doctors are not very fond of or they have not thought of. There is one provision in the Income Tax Act, Section 80 CCD. It gives you a total exemption of 50%, 50,000 rupees from the taxable income. And if you are taxed at 40% tax slab, it is a net saving of 20,000 rupees for you as a tax. What is Section 80 CCD? It is applicable to your investments in National Pension Scheme, NPS. If anyone, employed or otherwise, invests this amount in National Pension Scheme, Tier 1 account or Atal Pension Scheme, you get this deduction. This National Pension Scheme is totally transparent. It is simple, it is portable, and it is regulated. And again, the tax structure here is exempt, exempt, exempt. The amount you put up to 50,000 is tax-free. The interest you generate, however, your investment may be exceeding 50,000, but the interest on whatever you have invested is totally tax-free. And the withdrawal you do at the age of 60, you are allowed to withdraw a limited amount that I will come to very soon. Now, it's a National Pension Scheme is a voluntary pension scheme which is regulated by Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority. It was introduced in 2004 for the new government employees, but from 2009, it was extended to all on a voluntary basis. Account can be opened by anyone who is more than 18 years of age, and it can be continued till the age of 60 years. You can extend it also. Under this scheme, subscribers invest in a fund which is chosen by you, and they get a lump sum depending on the performance of the fund at their age of 60. Extra deduction of 50,000, which I already talked about. NPS belongs to EE category. PPF and EPF are the only two investments which come under this category. Now, planning of finance depends on your age, your status, whether you are employed, you are self-employed or entrepreneur, your stability of income, your family responsibilities, whether you have any additional source of income, your financial goals, and your risk appetite. Direct equity, as I already said, is the best asset class to invest for anybody. Buying a share is like buying a piece of business. Price of this piece of business will depend on the demand and supply of that share in the market, which is known as market dynamics. Now, what decides the market dynamics? What will rise the demand? Who will buy these shares? Those where the companies, the strength of the brand of the company it makes. We all know Colgate, we all know Close-Up, we all know Bajaj Auto, we all know Hero Honda, we know Maruti. So these are very strong brands. We all know noodles. We only know one company, Maggi, made by Nestle. So the strength of the brand company makes decides the demand for its shares, its profitability. The loan amount in the balance sheets of the company, return of the investment company generates, the cash flow, quality of the management, growth in the top line and the bottom line, all these factors will decide the demand for that share. More the demand for the share, more will be the price of that share. We all know Infosys, Tata Consultancy Services, Bajaj Auto, Asian Paints, Titan, Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank, HDFC, all these famous companies with monopoly in their sectors, and there is a heavy demand for their shares. That's why their shares are expensive. Now, how do we earn money from the share market? One is dividend income. But does it offer you any benefit tax wise? No. Why no? Because the dividend is now taxable in the hands of recipients. Capital appreciation. People buy shares only for capital appreciation. Means you buy a share of 100 rupees, you sell it at 200 rupees, and if it's a long-term investment, you are going to pay tax only at 10%. So capital appreciation is a real charm for investment in shares. Companies doing well will also reward their shareholders by allotting free shares, that is known as bonus shares, or at discount to the market price, and that is known as rights shares. So bonus and rights is one form of investment. Time in the market is more important than timing the market. So you have to be patient, stay invested in the market. Now, what are the tax benefits on equity investment? We have already seen. Share market gives opportunity to minimize tax outgo by adjusting short-term and long-term capital taxes. So now you know that you have made a lot of profit on, say, HDFC Bank shares. You need money and you want to sell it. And you are going to have good long-term capital gain tax. Now you want to minimize your tax outgo. You can sell some shares which you have bought recently and making losses. That is known as short-term capital loss. So short-term capital loss in shares can be adjusted against long-term capital gains in the share. So this is one way you can keep on playing with your taxes. Especially short-term capital loss can be set off against short-term as well as long-term capital gain tax, and it can be carried forward in the books for the next 8 years. Equity investments were exempted from the wealth tax when wealth tax was applicable. And transmission to the future generations is hassle-free, because once you you appoint a nominee, you did not go through the route of succession certificate and district courts in transferring the share or transmitting the share, as they call, to your nominees. Now, mutual funds. Now, mutual funds are normally classified either by structure, that is closed-ended funds, or open-ended funds, which we are not now interested because almost all the funds today are open-ended, and by asset type, whether your money is being invested only in shares, or whether it is invested in debt, or whether they are invested in both, that is hybrid funds, or they are being invested in money markets. So these are the various types of funds: equity oriented, debt oriented. Balanced is where their money is being invested either in debt partially and equity. Index funds. Index fund is one of the most important categories which a novice should know. You know, any fund, you approach a asset management company and buy funds from them. They appoint and pay very hefty sums to the fund managers, who are paid really, through sky. And they charge you a professional fee for wisely investing your money in various assets, in various shares. Now, index fund is one where fund manager doesn't have to use his brain. You know, there are two stock exchanges in India. One is a Bombay Stock Exchange. The other is a National Stock Exchange. Bombay Stock Exchange has an index. It decides on the prices of most popular 30 scripts like Asian Paints, Bajaj Auto, Bajaj Finance, Titan, Tata Steel, etc. So the market capitalization, the demand transaction in that particular share, Reliance Industries, is the heaviest. It has the maximum weight in BSE Sensex. HDFC Bank is next best. The amounts transacted in each of these constituent shares, that is known as weightage of those shares in that index. Now here the fund manager doesn't have to use any brains. He will invest your money in those 30 shares according to the weight of those shares in the index. So there is no brain to be used by the fund manager. So there is no expense ratio is very, very less. So you can maximize your profit by saving on the expense ratio of a mutual fund. That is known as index fund. You can invest in BSE, Sensex, or more popular is NSE, National Stock Exchange Nifty, Nifty 50. Similarly, your bank Nifty, healthcare Nifty, and all those sectoral funds, they have their own benchmark indices where the fund managers will put your money in the same weightage as the index is composed of. And then you have these options: overseas equity fund. You have enough investments in the local markets and you want to put your surplus money either in US markets or other emerging markets like Brazil, China, Malaysia, Singapore, whatever it is. So certain fund management companies invest your money. Franklin Templeton is very popular. ICICI Prudential is popular. Motilal Oswal also have overseas US fund. So you can put your money there. You have double gain. Whatever gain you get when their stock prices, which are part of your mutual fund, rise, and plus you get a currency advantage. If your rupee depreciates against the dollar, naturally your investment multiplies. Now, in the share market, top 100 companies are known as large cap companies, where their market capitalization is huge. Previously, their market capitalization was more than 10,000 crore rupees. They used to be called as large cap companies. The next 200 companies, they form the mid cap sector. So your money is put in the mid cap, middle size capitalization. And small cap is small size capitalization. They are lesser known companies. They are supposed to be slightly more risky company. Now you see the risk reward ratio here. In small caps, you have a high risk, but also high return. Large cap, where the market capitalization is huge, Asian Paints, Titan, Tisco, HDFC Bank, they are all large cap companies where the risk is low, but the returns are also relatively low. So anything which gives you high returns will have a high risk. Anything which will give you a lesser return will be low in risk. Similarly, if you, instead of investing your money wholly in stocks or shares, if you keep them partly in debt instruments, that is corporate bonds, government securities, where you have to hold them for minimum 3 years to avail of long-term capital gains, you get your interest income. They are safer investments because there is no volatility. Now, how do you select a good fund? You can take a picture of this. See, if you go on a website of Value Research or Morningstar, you will see full categories of funds: large cap funds, multi cap funds, flexi funds, mid cap funds, small cap funds, information technology funds, healthcare funds, finance, banking fund. You have to select the category you want to invest in. Currently, healthcare, IT are supposed to be safer. Financial instruments are okay, and large cap funds are safer. So you have to select your category of fund. You have to see what is the age of the fund. How old is the fund? It should be minimum 3 years at least. New funds, you do not know the track history. You do not know the performance of the fund and the history of that fund manager. You have to see the assets under management of that fund. In the investor's guide on Monday of Economic Times or a Sunday Business Line, you get almost all ready-made information on a chart. Assets under management. Assets under management should be minimum 2,000 crores. Fund should be at least 3 to 5 years old. Its expense ratio should be less. It should be less than 1.5, or it should be between 1.5 to 2 if the fund is very renowned. Then the profile of fund manager, which you can access either on the Value Research site or on Google. Then you can study the portfolio of the holding. If you are interested in buying, say, Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank, leading financial funds, go to the financial category of the funds, find out which fund has the best holding in Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, and so on. These are the most important parameters. Amongst the fund, how are you going to select a fund? Study these ratios: alpha, beta, standard deviation, and Sharpe's ratio. So what is the standard deviation? It is a tool that measures deviation or a dispersion of your fund portfolio from the expected return. We have seen what is an index. So any fund has a certain portfolio. It can be large cap portfolio, it can be banking portfolio, it can be healthcare portfolio. But what is the benchmark index of that category of shares is giving return of? If your fund is having a standard deviation of 7% and average return is around 15%, that means your fund has a tendency to vary from 8 to 22% in returns. A standard deviation of 7% on an average return of 15% will give you a return which varies from 8 to 22. So lesser the standard deviation, more stable will be your return. Sharpe's ratio. It's a very important tool. Per se, it has no value. But if you compare return from your portfolio and return from a safe investment like a government security or a fixed deposit in a bank, return from the fund minus return from the safe investment like a government security or a term deposit divided by standard deviation. So that ratio is known as Sharpe's ratio. Higher the Sharpe ratio, better risk adjusted return. So where do you get this? You get it in a value research. Per se, it has no value. But if you are now looking for a best large cap fund, amongst the best performing large cap funds, if you see the Sharpe ratio of your fund of your choice, the fund which has a higher Sharpe ratio is safer to invest because it is giving you better risk adjusted return. Alpha. Alpha means the excess return you get from your fund as compared to the benchmark index. Higher the alpha, the better for you. If your alpha of your fund is 5%, that means it is outsmarting the performance of the benchmark index by 5%. If it's doing it by 50%, you have hit a gold mine. Beta. This denotes the sensitivity of the fund towards the market movements. If the market falls by 30%, but the net asset value of your fund has fallen only by 25%, that means your fund is more stable. It has a lower beta value than the market. So beta of less than 1 shows the stability. Now, how will you use this information? When the markets have risen unreasonably, like today, markets have gone, they have peaked up. Then when the markets are at peak, always invest your money in low beta shares, low beta mutual funds. If the market has sunk, it has fallen, and it's likely to go up, then put your money in high beta shares or high beta mutual funds because your returns will multiply. Now, investment in real estate. All these years, Indians preferred direct investment in this asset class because of lack of alternative options in the financial markets. Buying and holding physical real assets was a fad. Does the investment in real estate make sense? I will show you for young investors. Just look at this chart. You are buying a house and you are buying shares. When you buy a house, say for 100 rupees, you have to put only 24 rupees or 10 rupees from your pocket, because any financial institution will give you loan if you are a qualified professional and if you have some steady income. So you are putting only 20 rupees and borrowing 80 rupees at the interest rate of 7%, which is a SBI housing loan rate of interest today. But for shares, nobody is going to give you loan. You have to put all 100 rupees from your pocket to buy shares. At the end of 1 year, real estate appreciates by 10%. Shares appreciate only by 12%. But housing investment is done on loan. You have to sell out 7 rupees from what you have earned towards interest. So your net carry home is only 3 rupees here, while in the share market, all 12 rupees is yours. But these 12 rupees you have earned on an investment of 100 rupees. So your investment, return on investment is only 12 rupees, 12%. But here, to make these 3 rupees, you have invested only 20 rupees from your pocket. So your return of investment here is 15%. Plus, we have not considered the section 80C benefit of 1,50,000 rupees a year And if it's your first housing project and if the cost of the house is less than 50 lakhs, whatever interest you are paying towards the housing loan will all be tax free. So remember, buying house, that to your first house on borrowed money makes sense tax wise. Now, what is real estate investment trust? It's a vehicle that owns, operates, and manages a portfolio of income generating properties for regular returns. It will buy, that investment trust will buy offices, shops, malls, or hotels from where they will generate annual returns. These are usually commercial properties that generate returns, and that those returns will be distributed. So real estate investment trust is like a mutual fund. It pulls funds from a number of investors and invests them in rent generating properties. Now the Securities Exchange Board of India requires Indian real estate investment trusts to be listed on exchanges and to make initial public offering to raise the money. There are already two real estate investment trust companies on the share market. One is Embassy Park and the other is Mindspace, where you can buy and sell the units of those real estate investment trusts on the market itself. Now each fund has its own strategy. The fund manager, he can buy equity in a project. Say Lodha Malgondo has a big scheme on near Gahunjan Express Highway. So the real estate investment trust company can become a partner. It can buy a share of the whole project. So they can part in partnership, or they can lend the money to a promoter or developer in the form of debt, like a banker, or they can have a combination of equity and debt, that is known as mezzanine structure of investment. What REIT will offer you as an individual investor, you may not be able to put heavy investment in any real estate project, but for a small investor, it gives you asset diversification, it gives you geographic diversification. Sitting in Pune, you are buying a property in Noida, Delhi, in Bangalore, which is number one real estate market of India, Hyderabad, tier 2 cities. It gives you developers diversification. Some money will be put in Lodha's project, some money will be put in DLF, somebody will be put in, say, Ashoka Buildcon and various other renowned builders. Then the real estate investment trust will collectively negotiate for all of us. So you will get the lower entry points, you will get a discounted price, secured repayment. They will have a team of legal experts, so there will be higher due diligence. And this property churning and decisions to sell or liquidate the property will be done professionally by the active asset management and control. And it will lower the overhead costs. So what it does not offer you, it will not give you buying rights or investment making discretion. So REIT is a good way of investing money. Now always decide in which asset class to invest depending the time duration of your investment. Amongst the mutual funds, this slide you can take a photograph of. If your horizon of investment is less than 6 months, you should not put it in the equity market at all. You can put your money either in the bank account or in liquid funds. These are funds of very short duration of less than 6 months. If your horizon is a little longer, between 6 months and 2 years, you can buy debt funds or gilt funds. Gilt funds are Government of India security funds where the money is reasonably safe. If your horizon is between 2 to 5 years, then you can buy balanced funds where most of it will be parked in debt and only part of it will be invested in equity. If it's more than 5 years but less than 7 years, you can put your money directly in large cap shares or large cap mutual funds. Between 7 and 10 years, mid cap stocks or mid cap mutual funds, and more than 10 years, small cap stocks and small cap mutual funds. Gold is most conventional preferred investment in India. It has high liquidity, possibly inflation beating capacity. It has safety, not of possession, but of preservation of capital. It's a good hedging tool, but it has inverse relation with equity. When the share markets boom, gold prices usually fall. Now you can buy physical gold, which I will never recommend because making and remaking and breaking charges will cause more than 30% loss. You can put your money in exchange traded funds. If your time horizon is shorter, between 6 months to 2 to 3 years, or if you want to trade in gold as a commodity, then exchange traded funds give you a good opportunity. And if any long-term investment should be done only in sovereign gold bonds, or you can put your money in gold funds, which are managed by famous banks like Kotak or HDFC, where they deal with gold prices every now and then, and you can buy these funds on stock exchanges like units. ETFs, they give you hedge against inflation. They protect against currency fluctuation. Gold ETFs older than a year attract long-term capital gain tax with indexation. There is no GST, no security transaction tax, or no wealth tax. HDFC Gold ETF and Kotak Gold ETF are very popular. Sovereign gold bonds, I have already told, you get an interest of 2.5% per annum, but which is taxable. So interest is very poor, very meager. But the best part of this is if you hold it till 8 years, and if gold prices really appreciate in 8 years, your capital gains will be totally tax free. And you can buy as little as 1 gram of gold in the form of bonds. Now, this is one aspect which is very, very interesting. Structured products. This is one of the last topics I am going to deal with in today's lectures. These are debentures. These are specific instruments which are linked either to the index Nifty, which I already talked about, or they are linked to the derivative market, which is known as what is known as futures and option market. They are mostly designed to counter volatility of the markets and to protect downside in a big investor. High net worth individuals can invest in structured products to protect from the volatility. Suppose you want to invest 100 rupees in a structured product. If you keep 77 rupees in a debt product like a fixed deposit for 3 years at the rate of 10% or precisely 9.5%, your 77 rupees will grow to 100 rupees in 3 years. So if you give 100 rupees to your fund manager, he will put 77 rupees in a debt instrument where your capital will be protected. At the end of 3 years, you will get your 100 rupees back. What does he do with remaining 23 rupees? One is index linked, which I have told you. That means 23 rupees can be invested in a exchange traded Nifty fund. That is known as Nifty Bees. Nippon India is the most popular exchange traded index fund in India. Now, if your index gives you 30% return in 3 years, your rupees 23 will become rupees 30. Thus, your 100 rupees will come from debt and 30 rupees will come from Nifty. So your total return will become 130 rupees. But if the Nifty falls, you are scared of volatility of the market and your market falls by 30%. Then 23 rupees will become only 16. And your maturity amount now will be 100 plus 16. That is 116. That is again much more than what you have invested. Now look at the other scenario. This is known as derivative linked debenture. 77 rupees go again in debt as before, but balance 23 rupees is now used to buy what is known as call option. A fund manager feels that if you invest your money in a future and option instrument and market is likely to go up, if he buys 2 Nifty calls at 1150 each, that means 200% participation in the Nifty returns with a notional investment of 100 rupees. And now if Nifty really generates 30% return in 3 years, your 2 call options will give you a total return of rupees 60. Thus, the maturity value of the debt plus derivative will become 100 plus 60. That is 160. But if Nifty falls below the level at which the investment was made, it will have no value. You will only get your 100 rupees back. Still, your capital is protected. So these are known as structured products. These are for high net worth investors who already have good exposure to the stock market. It has poor liquidity. It has a locking period time of 3 years and a big ticket size. Now, this is a slide which you must take photograph of. When you are young, You should put more money in equity, little in gold, some in real estate. But look, you have to invest yourself, life term insurance, professional indemnity insurance, and good mediclaim. And you should have cash only for 6 months expenses. If you are more than 65 years, all these investments will become, you have to invest more in debt, less in equity, same in gold. There is no need to buy any more real estate. You have to buy only mediclaim for yourself, and you should have sufficient cash for 12 months expenses. So this is the spectrum from 25 to 65. What allocation you should do to various asset classes. This is an important slide. Doctors look at insurance as an investment. They buy insurance for non-earning members like children or non-earning spouse. They buy insurance out of obligation from an acquaintance. They do not define age to retire. They do not diversify. Instead, pump lot of money in the profession and at times borrow it. They do not track performance of their investment. What important tips I would like to give? Your total loan amount should not exceed 7 to 10 times the net annual income. Your EMI should not be more than 35% of carry home income. You should always buy residential real estate on single name. Investing on oneself is essential with accelerated pace of change in the professional environment and competition. Possibility of becoming professionally redundant is real today. Reskilling and upskilling in the profession is mandatory. I thank you very much for listening to me patiently.
Sir, thank you very much for your valuable inputs. Dr. Nitin Patil was supposed to conduct this question and answer session, but he seems to be stuck with some patients. So we can have Pawan, Dr. Pawan and Dr. Amar conducting the question answer sessions. Over to Pawan and Dr. Amar.
Yes. So, sir, we will be asking some questions. Now, first question is, what about agri income? Can agriculture income be fused to Hindu?
I have no knowledge of agricultural income. Agricultural income is supposed to be tax-free, but I have no idea of how it's taxed when you are a doctor and plus you have agricultural income.
Okay.
You have to ask your chartered accountant. That's not.
Yes, sir. So can we purchase sovereign gold bonds via Hindu HUF?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
You should have a demat account in the name of your HUF. We have, and you can buy gold bonds in your HUF demat account. And there is no need to have a demat account also for a sovereign gold bond. You can buy a gold bond in the physical form also. But today, everything being demat, it's always better to have a demat account. I do all my sovereign gold bonds in the demat form only.
Okay. Sir, now many of us have started with online brokers like Zerodha, etc. And how safe it is to follow a Telegram or WhatsApp group or YouTube group regarding advice where to invest, when to invest?
It's very risky. See, you have to learn the basic art of investing. Never buy or sell on tips. I don't do it at all. See, I am a man who does only investment only on fundamental analysis. I don't go on any technicals because technicals do not give it. It gives you knowledge only of demand and supply and volumes. Does it really give attention to the basic performance of the company, quality of management? No. I do all my investment. I've been in the share market for the last 3 decades now. I do all my investments purely on my reading, on my knowledge. Now we have various groups where there are intelligent people, fantastic people in my groups. Whenever they recommend any script, I study that script. And once it fulfills my criteria of fundamentals, then only I put my money in that script. I just don't put money only on advice either by a financial consultant or by any colleague. I have to study myself because now I have sufficient exposure and experience in last 30 years to decide what is good and what is risky.
Right. Thank you. Sir, what websites you will advise us to follow to gain knowledge regarding?
I follow for mutual fund. See, I actually, since I have sufficient knowledge in the mutual funds, In the stock market, direct equity, I don't have even 5% investment in mutual funds.
Right.
But now my daughter has really learned it very well. I only guided her. She does all her study on principles I have taught her from the value research. So investments in mutual funds we do on the ready-made charts available from value research. And value research charts are published every Monday in the Investors Guide supplement of Economic Times.
Right. So, sir, is it advantageous to have rented clinic and rented house only rather than owning one?
Yes, today that's the trend. See, but rented house, staying in a rented house does not give you any tax benefits. But renting a car gives you 100% benefit.
Okay. So, ideally, for someone who is earning around 2 lakh rupees per month, what should be the ideal term insurance value, medical insurance value, and indemnity?
So, your annual income becomes 25 lakhs.
Yes.
So,
around.
your family is, used to a standard of living of 25 lakh earning per year. Yeah. Right? So 25 lakh इतना interest मिलने के लिए तो sum assured will be very huge. If somebody is making 2 lakh rupees a year as a income, he should insure himself for 5 crores.
Okay. And medical health insurance?
It depends on your fitness, your comorbidities, your family history, genes. So I have had lots of illnesses, and I have a medical insurance of myself of around 8 lakhs per year. I am 65 now. I would have liked to be around 15 lakhs, but nobody is going to give me insurance at age of 65 now.
Right. And what about indemnities are for physicians and for surgeons?
For physicians, it should be at least 1 crore. At least 1 crore. And for surgeons, if you are dealing with high-end patients, it should be 2.5 crores.
Okay. Right, sir. So, any more questions?
Sir, I want to ask Dr. Amar Rakantia here. Sir, if we are done have exposure in mutual fund, and they charges like expense ratio. So some small case features in like Zerodha and other things where the expense ratio is very less. Can we buy from small case?
I think many of my colleagues in my group also, they are doing it through Zerodha. But I have personally no experience because I do it through my fund manager where I have bought structured products linked to these debentures. So I have a lot of investment in structured products because the markets were going up so heavily. So I wanted to protect my portfolio. So I have, me and my wife, we have put a lot of money in structured products.
And sir, if we buy sovereign gold bond through Zerodha and some like...
why buy from Zerodha? You can buy it from your regular broker, of course. Zerodha, they are a registered broker on the stock markets. You can buy gold bond from them also and keep it in demat form in their demat account.
So another question, sir, you, hello? Yes, sir. So you saw the market fall during the start of that pandemic.
Yes.
So what is your strategy when market falls like this? Shall we exit through share market completely and sit tight?
No, never. Time in the market, you have to buy. See, you have to trust the companies you are buying. See, there are certain fantastic companies we have tested, you have stood the test of time. Do you stop? See, there are certain products which are so essential. You can't do without them. Can you do without a Colgate? Can you do without Close-Up? Can you do without Synthol or Liril? Can you do without a jockey underwear? So there are certain products which you are going to use. In fact, lockdown has increased the sale of household appliances, washing machines, dishwashers, vacuum cleaners, entertainment. OTT platforms have become extremely popular because of lockdowns. So you have to think the other side of story also. See, in fact, we took an opportunity and increased our investment in the markets from March to June, and I am very richly rewarded. My stock market, my portfolio had never zoomed so high in last so many years like after this lockdown.
Yeah. So someone is asking like 1,50,000 initial income of HUF is exempted from tax, right?
No, 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 no. 1,50,000 rupees. See, what is the tax-free slab? 2.5 lakhs. But there
Right.
are ways to be, tax liability zero till 5 lakhs annually, right? So you can make 5 lakhs tax-free for a HUF also. Investing 1,50,000 rupees in ATC investment, this thing, ELSS you can buy. You can put money in your child's PPF. HUF cannot have a PPF, but it
Okay.
can put money in your child's PPF.
Okay. 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 Right. So is it like if my wife is earning less,
Hmm.
I can just pay her as a employer for some XYZ clinical work she is helping me with?
That is, but see, income tax will always look at it suspiciously. What is the best? See, there is something known as provision of clubbing. That is section 64. What is provision of clubbing? We cannot give gift to our wife. We can give gift to our wife, our minor children,
Right.
but or daughter-in-law. But the income generated from that gift in the hands of your wife or your minor children will be clubbed in your income, and you will be entitled to pay tax on the returns generated from gift given to your wife. That is known as provision of clubbing. So instead of making ourselves, target of section 64, give her a loan. Take 7% simple rate of interest annually from her.
Hmm.
So if you give her a loan, she buys a car, registers it commercially, takes out a shop act license, and you use this car. See, if it's a Maruti, what is the normal rate for a Maruti today? 12 rupees per kilometer, 300 kilometers a day. You can pay her 3,600 rupees a day towards taxi charges.
Tax recharge.
Nobody is going to ask you any question. अरे तू 40 किलोमीटर का चालवलं रे?
Right.
300 किलोमीटरचं भाडं देतोय. That's my choice.
Hmm.
That's my choice. So
Right.
you can give 3,600 rupees every day. The only expense for her is road tax, petrol, and driver's salary,
Hmm.
right? So
Right.
she can build up her capital and repay your loan simultaneously.
Hmm.
Huh? So see, my X-ray clinic.
Right.
I have an X-ray clinic which I have, structured like this only. Way back in 1998, I gave loan to my HUF. My
Hmm.
HUF bought an X-ray machine, and I have a huge X-ray turnover. And
Hmm.
whatever profits we generated from my HUF, we have invested in the stock market. So my HUF portfolio is also really huge now. So that's how your money will grow. Create legitimate taxable entities. HUF, non-earning member of the family, your retired father, retired mother. There is no end to it. You can have a pharmacy, you can have a physiotherapy clinic, you can have a lab, you can have an X-ray machine, you can have a cab.
Right. Hmm. So, sir, which is the best indemnity insurance company we should take indemnity from?
See, now you should never switch over from one company to other, because if you get caught in a case in between the 2 years, both the companies will disown you. This has happened in case of my own anesthetist, who is no more, Dr. Lahankar. He switched from United Insurance to New India, and in between he got a case stuck. The case was done during tenure of the first company, but the client sued him during the tenure of the second company. Both the companies disowned. So he had to go to the court against the insurance companies. Ultimately, he won there, but it was a headache for 6 years.
Right.
So always remember, you have to remain loyal to your insurance company. Look at the ratio of compensations awarded and claims settled. New India Assurance Company is the best professional indemnity insurance company in India. Secondly, I have another policy with United Insurance because they offered me the cheapest policy, 7,500 rupees for 1 crore coverage. Plus, I have a policy which is known as errors and omission policy for my hospital, which gives me cover of 1 crore plus. Why? Because an anesthetist will come to me, a pediatric orthopedic surgeon will visit me, a joint replacement surgeon may at times come to my hospital. If anybody other than myself commits a mistake or accident happens in the hospital, my sister, my ward boy, then everything will be covered in this hospital policy, which is known as errors and omission policy. So you should have an individual professional indemnity, plus you should have a errors and omission policy of the hospital. I have errors and omission policy from New India Assurance Company. My personal indemnity, one from New India and the other from United India. I don't have any indemnity from a private company. And I have studied this a lot. On professional indemnity insurance, I can give a talk of 15 minutes. What factors you should look at while buying a professional indemnity plan.
Right. Are there any more questions? So shall we move ahead with Thanksgiving and summarization of webinar by Dr. Amar?
Yeah. Are there any questions? I, Dr. Amar Raikantya, thanks Dr. Kedar Patel, my friend, for giving me opportunity to moderate this session. Thanks, Dr. Bhagli, for giving us very informative session on finance management. As we medical professionals have very least knowledge about finance and sometimes even ignore. I'm sure after today's session, or say after this discussion, we have more clear idea of financial management. To summarize, we discuss on power of compounding, difference between investment and insurance, type of asset protection product, tax planning, selection appropriate model for proprietor. We also discuss on Ununited Family, investment to save taxes like PPF, gold, sovereign bonds, taxation, and also benefit of investment in NPS, that is my favorite, tax benefit of equity, and bond yields. I want to, we have here to help each other in case of any queries related to finance. Please free to ask to the respective members. By this note, I conclude once again. Thanks for this interactive and informative session. Looking forward for this more session like this. I hand over to Dr. Kedar Patel now.
Thank you very much. Good night, friends.
Bhagli sir, thank you very much for accepting our invite, and it has been a teaser for everyone, and it's just the beginning. Maybe more people will get interested and we'll be coming back to you for advice. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, sir. Piyush, you can log off everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.